China's bold moon landing has just turned the space race upside down.
Overnight, China launched a rocket carrying 3 astronauts to the country's space station for a 6-month stay.
China says it has successfully landed a spacecraft on the far side of the moon.
China has launched an unprecedented mission to retrieve samples from the far side of the moon.
American intelligence says is catching up to the U.S. Now, Beijing has set its sights on the moon.
Are we in a new space race?
We're in a space race. For us to go back to the moon, for them to get to the moon.
China landed an uncrewed spacecraft on the far side of the moon on Sunday.
Have you ever wondered what it feels like to witness history in the making? Can you imagine a time when a new player steps onto the grand stage of space exploration and changes the game forever? And how would you react if that moment just happened right before our eyes? Today, we're witnessing a game-changing event. China has successfully landed on the moon, surpassing NASA and marking a new chapter in the space race. This isn't just a routine mission. It's a bold statement that the torch of space leadership is being passed in surprising ways. China has gone from being a fast follower to a trailblazer, setting new standards for lunar exploration. So, what does this mean for the future of space travel? Is this the dawn of a new era where old boundaries are shattered and new possibilities emerge? Stay with us as we unpack this monumental achievement, exploring how China's recent lunar success is reshaping the global landscape of space exploration and what exciting adventures lie ahead for humanity. All right, let's start with China's Chang'e 6 mission. Imagine you're playing a game of capture the flag, but the flag is on the other side of a huge field no one has ever crossed before. That's basically what China has done with their Chang'e 6 mission. They've landed on the far side of the moon, a place that's super hard to reach and explore. This mission took off on May 3, 2024, from the Wenchang space launch site. And it's not just about getting there. They're planning to bring back samples from this mysterious part of the moon for the first time ever. Pretty cool, right? This isn't China's first rodeo when it comes to lunar missions. You might remember back in 2019 when their Chang'e 4 mission made headlines. That was when they became the first to land a spacecraft on the far side of the moon. Think of it like being the first person to discover a hidden room in a massive mansion. It was a big deal and showed everyone that China was serious about exploring space.
Well, it's a big deal in that it's the second time anybody has landed anything on the far side of the moon. China did it the first time. It's something that we here in the U.S. had talked about doing half a century ago. And my little moon here, the side that we see, we know quite a bit about. The side we don't see, the far side, we know something about because we have spacecraft orbiting it, but we've never brought samples back. And there's a lot of questions as to why the two different sides of the moon look that different. And this mission will help answer some of those questions.
Now, with Chang'e 6, China is taking things to the next level. They're not just visiting this hidden room again, they're planning to bring back souvenirs. These samples from the far side of the moon could help scientists unlock secrets about the moon's history and even our own planet. It's like finding a box of old photos in your attic that could change everything you know about your family's past. This mission is a game changer and a giant leap for China and space exploration as a whole. Now let's break down what the Chang'e 6 mission is made of and what it's aiming to do. Think of this mission like a well-coordinated team going on an epic treasure hunt. There are 4 main players here: a lunar orbiter, a lander, an ascender, and an Earth re-entry module. Each one has a specific job to make sure the mission is a success. The lander is like the digger of the team, set to scoop up 2 kilograms of lunar soil and rock, even reaching 6.5 feet underground in the Apollo crater located in the South Pole Aitken Basin. Why is this such a big deal? Well, these samples are like ancient artifacts. Imagine if you could dig up a time capsule from thousands of years ago that tells you all about your hometown's history. That's what scientists are hoping to get from these lunar samples. They could reveal secrets about the moon's early days and how it has changed over billions of years. This info can also give us clues about the early history of our own planet, since the moon and Earth share a lot of history. Once the samples are collected, the ascender will take them back up to the lunar orbiter, which will then head back to Earth. The whole process is expected to take 53 days, from launch to landing back on Earth. It's like sending a team to the top of a mountain and back with a special flag planted at the peak, only this time the flag is precious moon rocks that could change what we know about space. Let's talk about the technical hurdles China faced with this mission and how they tackled them. Landing on the far side of the moon isn't like landing in your backyard. It's more like trying to land on the rough side of a mountain blindfolded. The far side isn't visible from Earth, so you can't just pick up the phone and call the lander or astronauts. Without a clear line of sight, direct communication is impossible. So, how did China solve this? They launched relay satellites like Quikiao. Think of these satellites as middlemen or walkie-talkie towers in space. They sit out there and bounce signals between the Earth and the far side of the moon. This way, mission control can stay in touch with the lander even when it's on the hidden side of our lunar neighbor. It's like having someone on the top of a hill passing messages back and forth between you and your friend on the other side. But communication wasn't the only tricky part. The terrain on the far side is super rugged and full of craters, making it really tough to land a spacecraft safely. It's not like landing on a nice, flat parking lot. China had to use advanced technology to map the surface and find the best spot to touch down. They equipped the lander with precise navigation tools and cameras to avoid obstacles and ensure a smooth landing. It's like using the latest GPS and off-road gear to navigate through a dense, rocky forest. China's innovative solutions to these challenges showcase their growing expertise in space exploration. They didn't just follow the paths laid out by others. They blazed their own trail, overcoming obstacles that seemed insurmountable. Now let's zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture, what China's up to in space. The Chang'e 6 mission is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. China has some pretty ambitious plans for the future. They're not just making one-time trips to the moon, they're planning to set up shop there. By 2030, they aim to have a permanent lunar base. And get this, they want to send humans to the moon by 2030. That's like going from taking a single vacation to the moon to moving there and building a house. The upcoming Chang'e 7 and Chang'e 8 missions are all part of this grand plan. Scheduled for 2026 and 2028, these missions will focus on the moon's polar regions. Think of these areas as the untapped wild frontiers of the moon. Chang'e 7 will scout them out, while Chang'e 8 will test out new tech that could help future astronauts live off the land, so to speak. It's like sending explorers to a new continent to figure out where to build settlements and how to use local resources. All these efforts are steering China towards their long-term goal, becoming a leading space power by 2049. They're aiming to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the People's Republic of China with a major presence in space. It's a bit like setting a big, ambitious goal for your 100th birthday and working hard to achieve it. China's space ambitions are not just about beating others in a race, they're about securing a spot at the forefront of space exploration and innovation for the next century. let's dive into the bigger picture beyond space exploration, the geopolitical impact of China's Chang'e 6 mission. This isn't just about landing on the moon. It's shaking up the whole space game. For a long time, space has been dominated by Western countries, especially the United States with NASA at the helm.
What to you is worrisome about all this?
They are not transparent. And you better watch your stuff. That's my concern about them getting to the South Pole before us, is they get there and they say, this is our territory, you stay out.
But now, China is stepping up and saying, hey, we've got big plans too, and we're here to stay. It's like a new team entering a championship league and changing the way the game is played. One of the ways China is making waves is by promoting a vision of international cooperation in space. They're not just going it alone. They've created the International Lunar Research Station Cooperation Organization, or ILRSCO for short. This group, which includes countries like Russia, is all about setting new rules and principles for exploring and using resources on the moon. Imagine it as forming a new club with its own set of rules, inviting others to join and saying, let's work together to make the most of what the moon has to offer.
Back in the day, it was either us or the Russians, and we were competing. There really wasn't any collaboration. These days, you have, for example, this Chinese mission has Swedish and Italian and French and Pakistani stuff on it.
These moves have significant geopolitical implications. By leading initiatives like ILRSCO, China is challenging the current space order that's been largely led by the West. They're pushing for a more inclusive approach, where more countries have a say in how we explore and utilize space resources. It's like changing the dynamics in a boardroom where one group has always called the shots, and now a new, influential member is advocating for a more collaborative and shared leadership. This shift could reshape not only how we explore space, but also how nations interact and collaborate on a global scale. Now let's take a look at how the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are making their mark in space exploration. Each of these countries has unique achievements that are helping to shape the future of space travel. Starting with Brazil, they've developed and launched several satellites, with Amazonia one being a standout. This satellite helps monitor the Amazon rainforest, which is crucial for environmental protection. Brazil also partners with countries like the US, China, and India. A great example of this is the China-Brazil Earth Resources Satellite, CBER's program, which shows how international cooperation can lead to big advancements in space tech. Next up, Russia. Russia has a rich history in space exploration, achieving numerous firsts, like launching the first artificial satellite, Sputnik, and sending the first human, Yuri Gagarin, into space. They're not resting on their laurels, though. Russia continues to develop advanced spacecraft and has big plans for future missions to the moon and Mars. It's like being an old pro who's still in the game and aiming for new records. India is another major player, making headlines in 2014 by successfully placing a spacecraft into Mars orbit on their very first attempt, a feat only a few countries have achieved. They also discovered water molecules on the moon with their Chandrayaan-1 mission. India is gearing up for its first human spaceflight program by 2024. Think of India as the underdog that's quickly rising to the top with impressive and groundbreaking achievements. Then we have China, which has already made significant strides with its Chang'e program, successfully landing on the moon and even bringing samples back to Earth. The Tianwen-1 mission has China exploring Mars, and they've built their own space station, Tiangong, which is now operational. China is like the fast-rising star, setting new benchmarks and challenging the status quo in space exploration. Lastly, South Africa. While not as flashy as some of the others, South Africa is making important contributions too. They're heavily involved in the Square Kilometre Array, SKA project, which is the world's largest radio telescope. They've also launched several satellites for Earth observation and scientific research. South Africa's efforts are like the quiet but essential work that forms the backbone of major scientific advancements. Together, the BRICS countries are showing that space exploration is a global effort, with each nation bringing something valuable to the table. As they continue to push boundaries and collaborate, they're paving the way for an exciting future in space for everyone. Now, let's talk about how the BRICS countries are teaming up in space and working together to tackle some of the world's biggest challenges. They've established some pretty cool collaborations that are making a big difference.
China says it has advocated for peace and world cooperation in space, and its lunar partners include Russia, Pakistan, and Venezuela.
Remote sensing and data sharing are key areas where the BRICS countries are joining forces. Imagine having a bunch of super-powered telescopes and sensors in space that can monitor everything from climate change to natural disasters. That's what remote sensing is all about. By sharing data, these countries can get a clearer picture of what's happening on our planet and work together to find solutions. In May 2022, they took things to the next level by launching the BRICS Joint Committee on Space Cooperation. This committee is like a meeting of the minds, bringing together experts from each country to brainstorm and plan how they can work together more effectively. They're focusing on remote sensing, satellite observation, and sharing all that valuable data among themselves. It's like pooling resources and brain power to solve big problems that affect us all. This cooperation isn't just about space exploration. It's about using space tech to make life better here on Earth. Whether it's monitoring the environment, managing natural resources, or responding to disasters, the BRICS countries are showing that when we work together, we can achieve great things. As they continue to collaborate and share knowledge, we can expect even more groundbreaking discoveries and solutions to come out of these partnerships. It's an exciting time for space exploration and global cooperation, and the BRICS countries are leading the charge.
China's Chang'e 6 lunar probe's on its way back to Earth after collecting rock and soil samples from the far side of the moon.
So, what lies ahead in the thrilling adventure of space exploration? Well, it's looking like we're headed for a future filled with both excitement and challenges. Right now, there's a kind of cosmic showdown shaping up between the West, led by the United States, and the East, with China and Russia taking the lead. It's a bit like two teams gearing up for the Space Olympics, but with a lot more at stake. This competition is driven by geopolitical rivalries and even strategic military interests. On one side, we have the US-led Artemis Accords, which are all about getting humans back to the moon by 2025. It's like the US saying, "We were there first and we're going back in style." But on the other side, we've got China and Russia teaming up on lunar missions, working together instead of going solo. They're even planning to establish an International Lunar Research Station, ILRS, which could be a hub for scientific collaboration and exploration. This dynamic sets the stage for an exciting but potentially tense future in space. It's not just about planting flags and taking selfies anymore. It's about who gets to set the rules and control the resources out there. But amidst the competition, there's also hope for collaboration and shared exploration. Ultimately, the future of space exploration will be shaped by how we navigate these challenges and whether we can find common ground among the stars. Whether we're exploring the moon, Mars, or beyond, one thing's for sure: humanity's journey into space is just beginning, and the possibilities are truly out of this world. Thank you for joining us on this cosmic adventure. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more exciting videos. And to watch the latest geopolitical news, watch this video here.